greatness begins in silence, often in the quiet corners of the mind where imagination dares to paint pictures beyond the limits of reality. The first sign of a truly great person is not that others understand them, but that they are misunderstood. Why? Because their vision stretches beyond what the common eye can see. They think in dimensions others have not yet entered. They speak of futures that others cannot yet imagine. When they share their ideas, people label them as dreamers, strange, or unrealistic. But what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary is precisely this. Great people operate from a vision that does not depend on validation. They see before others believe. Most people live through patterns that society has taught them. Their thinking is built upon what has already worked, what has already been proven, and what has already been accepted. The great ones, however, are not confined by these patterns. They sense possibilities before evidence appears. This is not arrogance, it is foresight. Their imagination allows them to perceive opportunities hidden from the common observer. When everyone else sees limitation, they see potential. When others accept boundaries, they question them. That difference in perception creates misunderstanding because society tends to trust what it already knows and fear what it does not. The vision of a great person always seems ahead of its time. Imagine someone talking about ideas that challenge the very foundation of how people live or think. Most listeners will not comprehend because their mental framework has not evolved to that level yet. History repeatedly shows this truth. Those who changed the world were initially ridiculed or doubted. When people cannot see what you see, they criticize what they cannot understand. It is easier for society to reject what makes it uncomfortable than to expand its own limits. Therefore, misunderstanding becomes the natural companion of visionaries. However, being misunderstood is not a sign of failure. It is confirmation that you are thinking differently. The great ones understand this. They learn to stay true to their inner vision, even when no one claps for them. They trust the unseen more than the visible, because they know that everything that exists today was once invisible in someone's mind. Every invention, every discovery, every breakthrough began as a thought that seemed impossible. The common mind sees reality as a finished product, the visionary sees it as a canvas still in progress. To see beyond the common eye requires courage. It is not easy to hold on to your dreams when everyone else tells you they are unrealistic. It takes inner strength to remain focused when the world doubts you. But that is the essence of greatness. It demands belief before evidence. The ones who eventually change the world are those who keep building, even when no one else understands the blueprint. They do not measure their progress by how many people agree with them. They measure it by how closely they stay aligned with their purpose. Greatness is not about being seen early, it is about being right eventually. The misunderstood individual keeps walking, knowing that time will reveal what words cannot explain. They understand that vision cannot be fully shared, it must be lived. The journey of the great is lonely because few can travel at the same mental altitude. But this loneliness sharpens their focus. It filters out distractions and forces them to depend only on their conviction. They learn that true clarity does not need applause. The more advanced your vision, the fewer people will initially understand it. Vision beyond the common eye also teaches humility. It reminds you that the world does not owe you understanding. Just because people cannot see what you see does not make them wrong. It simply means their timing is different. Everyone awakens to truth at their own pace. The great ones accept this without bitterness. They do not waste time trying to convince the world. They dedicate time to creating something that the world will eventually recognize. Their work becomes the language that explains their vision better than words ever could. In the end, the misunderstood visionary becomes the teacher of generations. What once looked strange becomes wisdom. What once seemed impossible becomes essential. The same people who once doubted become the ones who quote, study, and follow. This is the natural journey of all who see beyond the common eye, rejection first, recognition later. Great people are never understood at first because they speak the language of the future while the world still listens with the ears of the present. To be misunderstood, therefore, is not a curse, it is a sign that you are ahead of your time. So when the world fails to understand your vision, do not shrink it. Keep seeing, keep building. One day, the world will catch up to the clarity that you already possess. Every great person pays a price for refusing to conform. The cost of nonconformity is misunderstanding, criticism, and often isolation. Yet, it is also the foundation upon which progress is built. Throughout history, society has been shaped not by those who blended in, but by those who stood apart. Nonconformity is not about rebellion for attention. It is the courage to remain true to a deeper truth, even when the world insists on sameness. Great individuals are not driven by the desire to be different, they are driven by the need to be authentic. They sense that following the crowd may bring comfort, but it also limits creation. To live with purpose, one must be willing to break away from patterns that no longer serve growth. The cost begins when a person decides to think independently. Most people prefer the safety of agreement because it protects them from rejection. But great individuals choose the risk of individuality over the comfort of conformity. They understand that innovation and obedience rarely coexist. The world, built upon traditions and rules, resists change because change threatens its stability. When a person steps outside those lines, society's first reaction is defense. People criticize not because the new idea is wrong, but because it challenges their sense of security. Your nonconformist becomes a mirror, reflecting how limited collective thinking has become. And since people dislike seeing their limitations exposed, they attack what they do not understand. To walk the path of nonconformity requires inner strength. The great ones learn early that acceptance cannot be their goal. They realize that validation from the majority is a dangerous drug. It can numb creativity and weaken conviction. True greatness is built upon conviction that does not need permission. The nonconformist listens to the voice of purpose rather than the noise of approval. They know that if everyone agrees with them, they are not leading, they are following. So they embrace being misunderstood because it means they are standing where others have not yet dared to go. Nonconformity is not an act of pride but a purpose. There is a profound difference between rebelling and evolving. Rebellion seeks to destroy, but evolution seeks to build beyond. Great people do not reject norms to be difficult, they do it to create space for something better. They challenge what is broken so something stronger can take its place. The scientist questions the known to discover the unknown. The artist refuses imitation to express a new vision. The leader rejects comfort to establish a better system. Every act of progress begins with a person who dares to say, there must be another way. Yet in saying that, they invite criticism, doubt, and even isolation. Being misunderstood hurts, but it also purifies. It strips away the need for applause and replaces it with self-trust. When the world labels you as strange, it forces you to decide whether you will shrink to fit in or grow to stand out. Great people choose growth, even when it costs them relationships, reputation, or recognition. They understand that solitude is sometimes the price of authenticity. Every nonconformist must face a season where they walk alone, misunderstood by many and supported by few. But in that solitude they gain clarity. They learn that greatness demands separation before it brings influence. The world often mistakes obedience for wisdom, but history proves that progress is born from defiance, the kind of defiance rooted in vision, not arrogance. The nonconformist does not fight authority out of ego, they challenge the system to make it better. Without their courage, humanity would remain trapped in cycles of repetition. Every invention, reform, or revolution began as a thought that contradicted the majority. Nonconformity is the heartbeat of evolution. It is how societies grow, how ideas mature, and how individuals become extraordinary. In time, what was once considered rebellion becomes the new standard. The nonconformist who was once mocked becomes the model others follow. Society eventually adapts to what it once resisted. This cycle reminds us that being misunderstood is often proof of being early, not wrong. The cost of nonconformity is temporary, but the reward is lasting. Greatness demands the bravery to stand alone when truth is unpopular. To be misunderstood, therefore, is not a burden. It is a badge of honor for those who dare to walk their own path. If you ever find yourself questioned for not fitting in, remember this: conformity builds comfort, but nonconformity builds change. And change is the birthplace of greatness. Time is the ultimate judge of greatness. Every great person learns that recognition does not come when they expect it, but when the world is finally ready to understand them. The journey toward being appreciated is long, and it tests patience more than talent. This is why patience becomes a silent strength in every great person's story. When others fail to see the vision, patience allows them to continue building. When the world questions their ideas, patience helps them stay calm instead of defensive. It is patience that turns rejection into refinement and misunderstanding into mastery. Recognition may delay, but truth always finds its way to light, and those who endure long enough eventually become the examples that others look up to. Greatness moves at a different rhythm than public opinion. Society often celebrates the visible, not the valuable. It is quick to reward what is popular, but slow to understand what is profound. A great individual must learn to accept this gap in timing. The seed of greatness is planted in seasons of obscurity, watered with effort, and only blooms when the world is mature enough to receive it. If one seeks immediate validation, they will compromise the depth of their purpose for temporary applause. But those who practice patience learn the art of quiet endurance. They work in silence, not because they enjoy being unseen, but because they know the fruit will one day speak louder than any explanation could. The waiting period is not wasted time, it is preparation. Every moment of being overlooked builds emotional strength. Every rejection trains resilience. Every delay forces focus. Patience is not passive, it is the active process of trusting the timing of your purpose. It teaches you to stay consistent even when the world seems blind to your efforts. The great ones understand that the longer something takes to be recognized, the more solid its foundation becomes. When your work is born from conviction, rather than the desire for attention, it gains a power that cannot fade with trends. Patience also refines character. When recognition takes time, it humbles the heart. It protects the individual from arrogance. The great person who has waited knows the value of every step, every sacrifice, every silent victory. They do not rise suddenly and burn out, they rise steadily and last. Their patience transforms them from dreamers into doers, from thinkers into builders. It is during the unseen seasons that they develop discipline, endurance, and maturity. Without patience, even great talent collapses under the weight of frustration. But with patience, even ordinary people achieve extraordinary results. There comes a moment when the world finally starts to notice. What once looked strange becomes visionary. The same people who doubted begin to admire. Yet, those who have walked the long road of patience know that fame is not the reward. Fulfillment is, recognition feels sweet, but it is only a reflection of what they already knew, that their purpose was worth the wait. They realized that time was never their enemy, it was their teacher. Time tested their sincerity, it filtered out shallow motives and revealed true dedication. Every delay made them stronger, wiser, and more grounded. The truth is, most people give up before the world gives them a chance. They stop when applause doesn't come soon enough. But greatness demands a longer timeline. The most beautiful results are hidden in the patience to keep going when no one is watching. Patience does not mean inaction. It means movement with faith. It is the strength to continue walking when the road is silent, the belief that your time will come, and the wisdom to know that your pace is not defined by others. Eventually, every great effort is recognized. History may take years, decades, or even centuries to catch up, but it always does. What was once misunderstood becomes inspiration for generations. The patient visionary understands that legacy cannot be rushed. They are not in competition with time, they are in cooperation with it. They know that every season of waiting has purpose. The world may not understand them today, but tomorrow will study their work, quote their words, and follow their example. To be patient in the process of recognition is to trust the law of cause and effect. Effort never disappears, it accumulates. Every step, every sacrifice, every silent day adds up to something timeless. The great ones endure because they believe that truth cannot stay hidden forever. They understand that recognition is not a reward but a result. The patient builder, the consistent dreamer, and the steadfast thinker all share one belief that time eventually reveals the value of all things. So if your efforts go unseen, do not lose heart, continue, persist, be patient, for the world may not understand now, but one day it will remember your name. The crowd is powerful, but it is rarely wise. The psychology of the crowd reveals a truth that every great person must understand. Most people are not guided by independent thought, but by collective emotion. The majority seeks safety, not truth. It values belonging more than understanding. And because of this, anyone who dares to think differently is often misunderstood or rejected. You great individuals do not fit easily into the collective pattern because they operate from clarity, while the crowd moves from comfort. This fundamental difference in motivation is why society often resists those who challenge its ways. The crowd does not think, it reacts. It fears what it does not understand and attacks what threatens its stability. From a psychological point of view, the crowd provides emotional security. To be part of the majority feels safe. Agreement gives the illusion of certainty. When everyone thinks alike, no one has to question anything deeply. But progress demands questioning, and questioning disrupts comfort. The moment someone stands up and says, "There is another way," they disturb the harmony of the group. The crowd, instead of listening, often turns defensive. It confuses new ideas with danger. This reaction is not because people are evil or ignorant. It is because fear governs the collective mind. The unfamiliar feels unsafe, and the human instinct is to reject what it cannot quickly understand. Great people learn to recognize this dynamic. They know that trying to convince the crowd is often pointless because crowds follow proof, not potential. The visionary, however, operates on potential long before proof exists. They can see the invisible, while the crowd demands evidence. This difference creates distance. The crowd says, "Show me, then I'll believe." The great one says, "Believe first, then you'll see." And that is the great divide between ordinary understanding and extraordinary vision. The crowd moves with momentum, the visionary moves with purpose. Understanding the psychology of the crowd also helps the great person maintain peace in rejection. When people criticize or mock new ideas, it's not personal, it's predictable. They are simply reacting to the discomfort of uncertainty. Once you realize this, their misunderstanding no longer wounds you, it teaches you. You begin to see that every era of progress begins with resistance. The crowd that laughs today will learn tomorrow. The same voices that ridicule innovation will later depend on it. The crowd's rejection is not a verdict, it is part of the process. The crowd is also influenced by emotion more than reason. It believes what feels true, not what is true. That's why great thinkers, leaders, and creators must stand apart from emotional noise. They must anchor themselves in logic, purpose, and inner conviction. When the crowd follows trends, the great individual follows timeless principles. When the crowd reacts impulsively, The visionary responds intentionally. The difference lies in awareness. The crowd looks outward for direction. The great one looks inward for truth. The temptation to conform is strong. It feels easier to agree, to be like, to avoid judgment. But conformity silences creativity. The psychology of the crowd rewards sameness and punishes individuality. It prefers predictability because unpredictability challenges control. To rise above the crowd, one must be willing to think without the approval of others. Greatness requires mental independence, the courage to question, to doubt, to explore, and to believe even when belief is lonely. Yet, those who separate from the crowd must also carry humility. It is not enough to think differently, one must think deeply. The goal is not to oppose the crowd for ego, but to enlighten it through example. When the visionary stays consistent, when they live out their truth with integrity, the crowd eventually begins to see what they saw all along. Slowly, what was once rejected becomes respected. The crowd does not change through argument, it changes through evidence of transformation. In time, the psychology of the crowd always shifts. What was once considered foolish becomes wisdom. What was once mocked becomes mainstream. The same collective that doubted you will one day repeat your words. That is the cycle of societal growth. The crowd resists what challenges it, then accepts it once it becomes safe. Understanding this protects your peace. You no longer crave immediate validation. You realize that your job is not to please the crowd but to progress it. Every great person must therefore learn to navigate this paradox. You must love humanity enough to serve it, but stay detached enough not to be broken by its misunderstanding. The crowd may not understand you now, but one day it will. Until then, keep walking your path with clarity and courage. Remember that progress has always been unpopular at first. The crowd follows light only after one brave soul dares to ignite it. Solitude is not loneliness. It is the hidden classroom where greatness is born. Every person who has ever achieved something extraordinary has gone through seasons of being alone, not because they wanted isolation, but because the world could not yet understand their journey. When others doubt you, when friends disappear, when applause fades, that silence is not a punishment, it is preparation. Solitude strips away noise, distraction, and validation until only truth remains. It forces you to face yourself, your weaknesses, your strengths, and your purpose. In that private space of stillness, vision grows stronger, ideas become clearer, and confidence takes root. Greatness begins when you learn to be at peace in your own company. In solitude, you begin to hear what the crowd cannot hear, the quiet voice of purpose. When the world is busy chasing trends and opinions, solitude teaches you focus. It reminds you that success is not about speed but depth. Alone, you start to see patterns, make connections, and develop insights that are invisible to distracted minds. Many fear being alone because silence exposes the truth. But those who embrace solitude use it as a tool for creation. They write, build, dream, and design without interruption. They understand that the noise of the world can blur vision, but silence sharpens it. Solitude becomes their laboratory, where raw ideas are tested and refined until they are ready to face the world. The misunderstood often find themselves in solitude not by choice but by necessity. When no one believes in your vision, you must learn to believe for yourself. Solitude becomes your companion when support disappears. But instead of resenting it, great people embrace it. They understand that being unseen is part of becoming unstoppable. It is in solitude that resilience is built. When there is no one to motivate you, you learn self-motivation. When there is no applause, you learn self-approval. And when there is no validation, you learn self-worth. These lessons cannot be taught in crowds. They are only learned in quiet moments of reflection and perseverance. The world often celebrates results, but ignores the solitude that made them possible. Every masterpiece, every innovation, every breakthrough has roots in moments of stillness. The painter alone in a studio, the writer lost in thought, the thinker staring into space, all are engaging in a sacred act of focus. Solitude is not withdrawal from the world, it is preparation to serve it better. It allows great people to recharge, to think clearly, and to align their actions with their purpose. Without solitude, creativity becomes shallow and purpose becomes confused. The truly great understand this, they do not fear silence, they seek it. However, solitude is not just about separation, it is about transformation. It tests you. It shows you what you really believe when no one is watching. It exposes your insecurities and teaches you emotional independence. In solitude, you realize that peace is not found in people, it is found in purpose. You begin to detach from the need to be understood and focus instead on understanding yourself. This self-awareness becomes the foundation of strength. It turns pain into power, confusion into clarity, and doubt into direction. The stronger you become within, the less you need the approval of others without. In those quiet moments, the great ones learn to converse with their thoughts, refine their goals, and reconnect with their vision. They begin to see solitude not as emptiness but as fullness, the space where potential breathes. The world may label it isolation, but the wise know it as incubation. Seeds grow underground before they rise to sunlight. In the same way, Greatness develops in unseen seasons before it becomes visible to the world. The absence of attention is not a sign of failure, it's the soil in which future recognition grows. Eventually, solitude gives birth to clarity. When the time comes to step forward, the one who embraced solitude moves with quiet confidence. They are no longer desperate for approval because they have already built certainty in silence. They speak less but say more, they act less but achieve more. Their power comes from depth, not display. While others depend on external motivation, they draw from an internal source that never runs dry. So, when you find yourself alone, do not rush to escape it. Learn from it. Build in it. Grow through it. The silence that feels heavy today may be the same silence that protects your greatness tomorrow. Solitude is not your enemy. It is your ally. It gives you space to become who you are meant to be. The world may misunderstand your distance now, but one day it will understand your discipline. Every great life begins in solitude, and every great dream is born in silence before it echoes across the world.